And I'm really sorry. After 13 years of making Wheeler Dealers, I'm now going to be leaving the show.
Edd China has now spoken up about what actually transpired behind the scenes at Wheeler Dealers at the age of 54, and fans will be very shocked by what he discloses. Edd, who is well known throughout the world for his commanding presence and straightforward methodical fixes, now shares the inner workings of his creative conflicts, unspoken conflicts, and the reasons he put his morals before his notoriety. This hidden tale demonstrates that sometimes the most important truths aren't related to automobiles. At all costs, they are about refusing to make concessions. The mechanic who once again made fun of TV. At the start of the 21st century, television screens were overrun with vehicle shows that put more emphasis on show than content. The harsh realities of auto repair were frequently eclipsed by high-octane action and dramatic makeovers. Few could have predicted that in this setting, a tall British engineer with a sardonic smile and an insatiable interest in oddball creations would subtly but significantly change the genre. Edd China, who was born in London in 1971, was never simply another TV host who dabbled in mechanics. His mechanical skill was complemented from a young age by a keen engineering intellect and restless inventiveness. He graduated with a degree in engineering product design, which served as the basis for innovations like the renowned motorized living room sofa known as the casual lofa. He demonstrated his ability to transform unorthodox concepts into working equipment. Edd brought a refreshing dedication to authenticity to the automotive television industry when he partnered with Mike Brewer to start Wheeler Dealers in 2003. Edd was keen to present the whole tale, in contrast to many of his peers who opted to hide the tiresome, frequently stressful effort behind brief before and after reveals. Every episode turned into a thorough resurrection tutorial. While he meticulously described how to repair and restore rusty panels, remove seized bolts, and reassemble the complex parts that give an ancient car its original performance. By simplifying intricate fixes into manageable steps, his calm and deliberate approach encouraged spectators to learn as well as observe. This open strategy was groundbreaking. Under Edd's direction, Wheeler Dealers was a masterwork of patience and expertise, in contrast to other auto shows that mostly depended on loud commentary, contrived drama, and fast-paced racing sequences. Viewers who preferred honesty to spectacle were moved by his readiness to face the ugly, time-consuming reality of rehabilitation. Edd's sincere enthusiasm and moral character gradually elevated the program above mere amusement. It developed into a reliable resource for information and motivation for auto enthusiasts worldwide. Edd China had established himself as the face of authentic moral auto restoration on television by the time he was 54. Millions of people's minds were carved with his recognizable overalls and composed answers, and Wheeler Dealers became a media legend in the automotive industry. However, a more nuanced narrative had been developing underneath the comforting familiarity of his on-screen presence, one that was full of obstacles and creative conflicts that Edd himself had only just started to disclose, but about which fans had long conjectured. The struggle that is veiled. In March 2017, Wheeler Dealers supporters were taken aback by an unexpected statement. The show will no longer feature Edd China, 46, the tall, serene man who had led viewers through 14 years of complex repairs and hands-on engineering. The news did not arrive in the dramatic headlines of a heated press conference or an industry leak. Rather, it originated from Eddie, who was seated in his workshop, addressing the camera directly with the understated earnestness that has long characterized his on-screen persona. He was straightforward but measured in his statement. A suggested format change accompanied the show's transfer to the U.S. under the name Velocity, which was later renamed as Motor Trend Abes. Edd clarified in simple terms that the new producers aimed to simplify episodes by reducing the intricate mechanical parts that had always been the show's main focus. In order to focus on faster-paced storytelling and more general entertainment, they intended to quickly cut over scenes that showed the patient struggling to remove a corroded bolt or the meticulous dismantling of a carburetor. Edd saw this as more than just a creative dispute. It was a basic conflict of interest. As he explained how these changes would diminish my job and integrity, his disappointment was evident. The truth had to be spoken. Words that are carefully chosen, but full of significance. Without explicitly stating it, viewers immediately grasped what he was attempting to convey. By sacrificing its spirit for speed and popularity, the show that had taught so many people about the art and science of restoration ran the risk of becoming simply another piece of automotive television. But beneath Ed's calm declaration, there were hints of more serious, little-known conflicts. The tightened budgets that limited the quality of parts were discussed in whispers within production circles. Time allotted to every build, as well as pressures that eventually compelled the taking of shortcuts. Some alluded to an implicit assumption that complicated restorations would be presented as easier than they actually were, with changes covering up hurried work or omitted procedures. The proposal itself went against everything Edd had established his name on: openness, truthfulness, and respect for the audience and the craft. But these were never officially confirmed. Edd made the decision to completely leave rather than make any concessions on those ideals, which seemed all the more remarkable given how silent it was. Fans were left to piece together the unsolved question because there were no spectacular allegations or public battles. Just a single, well-worded statement. What would cause someone who was so closely associated with a show and whose whole philosophy was accuracy and patience to abandon the very platform he had helped establish? The true surprise was in that quiet exit. Not only was an era coming to an end, it suggested a conflict over something more significant than screen time. The struggle to preserve accuracy, attention to detail, and true workmanship in a field that is becoming more and more reliant on shortcuts. You have to look behind Edd China's on-screen demeanor to really comprehend why his departure from Wheeler Dealers struck such a profound chord. The tall man in overalls with oil-stained hands, and see the restless inventor whose life had always been characterized more by inventiveness and curiosity than by fame. Edd was never satisfied with merely fixing what was broken. He took great pleasure in defying engineering conventions and combining practicality and whimsy in ways that made people smile. Edd had previously made news in the Guinness World Records long before the cameras started rolling with inventions like the bog standard, the fastest motorized toilet in the world, and the casual lofa, a motorized living room sofa with a side table and a working lamp. These weren't the result of TV executives coming up with ideas for viral moments to increase viewership. They were the logical outgrowth of E.T.'s lighthearted belief that engineering should be as entertaining as it is educational. The distinction between pragmatism and eccentricity was blurred in his early academic efforts, hinting at the distinct character he would eventually bring to television. However, Edd's attitude behind these inventions, rather than their novelty, was what really made him unique. Access to that engineering could and ought to be provided. With a dry, subtle wit and a height well over 6 feet, he never played the role of the distant expert. Rather, he drew spectators into the workshop as equals, as fellow enthusiasts eager to learn, rather than as a crowd to be mesmerized. Every obstinate bolt, seized bearing, and wobbly alternator bracket presented a chance to dispel the mystery around something that had previously appeared unattainable. The appeal of Wheeler Dealers, in Edd's opinion, was not the gleaming completed vehicles leaving the garage, but rather the way they were built. The procedure, the perspiration, the unforeseen obstacles, and the creative fixes. The audience saw more than just an automobile chain. They discovered the rationale behind some choices, what might go wrong, and when it did, how to solve it. And for someone spinning spanners in their own driveway, that made even the most difficult technical task seem a little more manageable. However, the show's vision changed when it was taken over by new American producers. In order to prioritize dramatic, TV-friendly moments over the longer, messier process that had always characterized the show, the pace was to be accelerated and episodes were to be condensed around before and after shots. This appeared to some executives to be a modernization of the format. To Edd, however, it was more akin to destroying its essence. Edd presented the distinction as something more profound than editing decisions or airtime when he eventually talked about it more candidly years later. I contended that viewers avoided Wheeler Dealers because they were anticipating a polished finale. They were learning, so they watched, eliminating the show's mechanical justifications, trial and error, and candid acknowledgement of errors did more than just make it shorter. It undermined the entire purpose for which it was there. Edd had to decide whether to stay and see that vision erode or to go completely, which many people found nearly unimaginable. He left a worldwide syndicated primetime platform. The cost of staying would have been much higher than the cost of leaving for a man whose career had always been based on bringing transparency and authenticity to the technical world. In his own words, it was the most illuminating choice he had ever made. It was evidence that honesty is important, even if it means sacrificing attention. What was not publicly stated, although Edd's stated justification for leaving Wheeler Dealers was given in his usual cool, collected manner. What viewers remembered most was what he did not say. The video message felt genuine but allowed for questioning because it was sent to viewers directly rather than via a press release or tabloid scoop. Inquiries that eventually, maybe, devolved into conjecture. This was no typical departure after all. It was the silent departure of the very person whose presence had contributed to the character development of the show and distinguished it from innumerable others. Those with connections to the production industry started sharing bits and pieces of what they had heard in the silence that ensued. The resulting image suggested a production that was becoming more and more constrained by budgetary issues. The time and resources required for the painstaking restorations that viewers had grown accustomed to were being squeezed by continuously tightening budgets, they claimed. When every hour spent resulted in higher costs on the balance sheet, it had become more difficult to defend the meticulous sourcing of elusive parts, such as an original trim piece or a rare carburetor. These time-consuming aspects appeared to be seen as inefficiencies to be cut rather than as the heart of the event by its new stewards, who were tasked with maintaining its profitability. The rumors of creative disagreements regarding the automobiles themselves were much more telling. Should the emphasis shift to cars that could be rapidly turned around and sold for a healthy profit, or should it stay on the oddball, frequently impractical classics that had won over viewers' hearts? The latter appeared reasonable to producers who were keeping an eye on the bottom line. Edd believed that it was eroding the essence of the show, which had always been about bringing back automobiles that were beloved despite their flaws, even though they didn't make much financial sense on paper. Fans then began to hear rumors that some fixes that were necessary to make sure a car was actually roadworthy were being omitted from the screen or ignored completely. The idea that shortcuts would take the place of meticulous craftsmanship, even if the cars still left the garage looking camera-ready, went right to the heart of the trust Edd had spent years establishing. He was entertaining, but it wasn't the only reason viewers watched him. Instead of an illusion created for the sake of a tidy episode length, they believed that what they saw represented reality. This wasn't only a work-related annoyance for Edd, it was a threat to something deeper and more intimate. Whether it was through his engineering company, Grease Junkie, or his world record-breaking works that combined humor and technical genius, his name had transcended his television character to become a brand based on honesty and inventiveness. Making a compromise on screen ran the risk of damaging that reputation elsewhere. Viewers may start to wonder if Edd himself had compromised his standards if they thought he was using shortcuts, which he could not tolerate. Edd never acknowledged these internal conflicts in public, but his well-chosen comments regarding integrity in his departure said a lot. They alluded to a deeper philosophical debate over what the show should stand for, rather than only arguing over format or editing tweaks. Should it continue to be an educational and inspirational platform based on mechanical honesty, or evolve into a quicker, more ostentatious product designed to capture users' attention for a brief period of time? Edd didn't have to elaborate to give his response in walking away. It was a subdued but clear rejection of exchanging content for show. And although while the move cost him the prestige and stability of one of the most popular car shows on television, it kept something that is much more difficult to get back once it is gone. Millions of people believe that Edd China was the real man, unvarnished and unyielding, dedicated to doing things the right way, even if it meant leaving the stage rather than merely a fictional persona. The consequences. After Edd China abruptly left, Wheeler Dealers had to deal with a sea change that affected both its fan base and the automotive television industry. After Ann Anstead first joined Mike Brewer at the helm, the show went on, and by Mark Elvis Priestley afterwards. However, the spirit that had made the series so popular appeared to fade. The purposeful, step-by-step explanations that once clarified the complexities of auto repair, the operation of a differential, and the importance of gasket replacement were notably cut short. These pivotal moments were completely lost in certain episodes in favor of a faster pacing and less technical explanation. Many devoted viewers felt bereaved by this change, as though the program had sacrificed its essence for quicker amusement. Enthusiastic discussion arose in fan networks, social media sites, and online forums. Mike Brewer was held accountable by others who questioned whether the authenticity and chemistry had suffered in Edd's absence. But Brewer remained steadfast, publicly justifying Edd's departure while reiterating his friendship and regard. At first, he presented the breakup as a mutually tough decision rather than a falling out. However, the conversation revealed a deeper discontent in spite of Brewer's assurances. The kind of open, sincere healing procedure that Edd had promoted was what fans yearned for. Edd himself mostly stayed out of the spotlight throughout this tumultuous period. He quietly went back to what he did best rather than becoming involved in public arguments or media dramas, putting on his work boots and imparting his knowledge in a way that suits him. He reconnected with audiences who appreciated genuineness through YouTube initiatives like Garage Revival and later Workshop Diaries. With these platforms, he was able to resume meticulous, leisurely mechanical work without being constrained by episode time or network demands. For Edd, it was a means of maintaining the integrity that had first attracted his admirers, and a resounding declaration that true artistry, not television numbers, was what truly mattered. A new kind of epiphany at the age of 54. Edd China, who is currently 54 years old and at a professional crossroads, has started to talk more openly about the reasons behind his resignation, providing details that go much beyond what the original headline implied. In contrast to the sensationalized reports of backstage drama or violent arguments, Edd's disclosures go deeper into the essence of contemporary television production and its implications for entertainment and truth. He highlights a subtle, pernicious issue. When networks and producers put speed, spectacle, and financial appeal ahead of content, a slow degradation of purpose takes place. Although the industry's constant demands for shorter parts, tighter edits, and simpler storytelling may make shows easier to market and watch, they eventually eliminate the very qualities that made them unique. Edd never thought that the heart of Wheeler Dealers was about rapid turnaround times or dazzling revelations. The goal was to excite and educate people while showcasing the painstaking, perhaps exasperating process of repair. After giving this some thought, Edd says that the why of a process rapidly becomes meaningless when the how is eliminated. This may be subconsciously sensed by viewers. They might not always be able to identify the missing element, but the absence of a sincere explanation causes a gulf to form. The entire viewing experience is transformed from captivating and instructive to superficial and transactional in this minor, yet impactful transformation. In the end, Edd's choice to leave wasn't driven by a desire for fame or vanity. It was a moral decision to uphold the notion that viewers should be treated with integrity and openness, even if it meant devoting more time to the specifics and less to staged enthusiasm. His message is a subdued yet potent reminder that, in a day of rapid-fire content and short attention spans, the pursuit of integrity, truth, and compelling narrative is more crucial than ever. Heritage. Edd China's departure from Wheeler Dealers was more than just a career change. It was a purposeful effort of self-preservation carried out with full awareness of the high personal and professional costs involved. The show had given him a primetime television platform that was viewed by millions of people on several continents for more than 10 years. This was a unique amount of exposure in a genre when hosts sometimes become forgotten. Wheeler Dealers had evolved from a profession to a part of who he was, a place where his combination of patience, calm humor, and engineering knowledge made solving mechanical problems into a must-watch TV show. Edd left behind more than just a stable job and the reputation of a well-known international brand when he left. Big-budget television, large workshops, on-call specialized suppliers, well-trained production crews, and the comforting feeling of being a part of a well-functioning media machine are all resources he left behind. He purposefully traded that safety net for something much riskier in the process. The autonomy to act as he pleases, free from the protection of a production crew and the assurance of a renewal based on viewership. Edd's devoted audience's hard-won respect and trust, however, may have been even more valuable. Fans were drawn to him because of his openness, modesty, and readiness to share the unadulterated reality of what it takes to maintain and repair vintage cars, not because of his ostentatious camera work or dramatic revelations. Years of open communication and obvious effort helped to gradually strengthen that friendship. Might have suffered if he had stayed and taken a less demanding role where style and speed were prioritized above substance. Edd's YouTube workshop diaries since quitting mainstream media have demonstrated the costs and benefits of that decision. The dramatic music cues and rapid cuts of broadcast television are absent from these programs, which were filmed without the coordination of a network team. Rather of serving as narrative filler, viewers witness Edd carefully troubleshoot seized bolts, construct unique parts, and go over prior errors as key teaching moments that highlight the true difficulties of mechanical work. By the standards of traditional media, it is slower and less entertaining, but it is incredibly real. An audience that prioritizes the art over spectacle has been attracted in by this sincerity. Ongoing dedication to long-form, detail-oriented content stands out in an era where attention spans are getting shorter and viral content frequently prioritizes shock value over substance. His work serves as a reminder to viewers that mastery frequently resides in what others could remove in the editing room, and that true skill cannot always be hurried. The minor annoyances, the false starts, and the times when you have to consider a problem before using the next instrument. This method also draws attention to a more general reality that there is, and possibly always will be, a portion of the audience that is ravenous for information that honors their curiosity and intelligence. Viewers who want to learn how and why every step counts, rather than just watching a car go from barn find to showroom ready in less than 10 minutes. The enduring appeal of workshop diaries demonstrates that, despite changes in media formats, people's desire for truthful narratives and skillful craftsmanship remains constant. Thus, Edd's decision to leave became more than just a professional one. It evolved into a principled declaration. He demonstrated that sometimes the hardest choice is to stand back and say no in order to maintain what really counts by putting the integrity of the work above the temptation of ongoing celebrity. Edd's story strikes a deep chord with anyone who has experienced pressure to violate their own ideals or to take shortcuts in the name of convenience or praise. It was ultimately about us. Fundamentally, Edd China's eventually revealed reality is neither a shocking exposé nor a disclosure of covert betrayals. Rather, it conveys a much deeper and subtly potent message about the importance of honesty and integrity in all creative pursuits. Like any craft, television can only continue to be true and meaningful if its creators are unwilling to compromise authenticity and quality in favor of expediency, convenience, or financial gain. The network's request to streamline and condense Wheeler Dealer's information might not have been the biggest surprise to many. It is Edd's decision to defy authority. In a time when reality shows predominate in entertainment, they frequently distort the very facts they purport to portray. Edd's steadfast dedication to openness and specificity is noteworthy and nearly revolutionary. Even at considerable personal expense, he refused to sacrifice the show's thoroughness and instructional value, demonstrates a unique type of bravery in the face of industry demands. Edd China's tale now goes beyond television and automobiles at the age of 54. It turns into evidence of the strength of integrity, the notion that enduring your audience and keeping loyal to your profession are more valuable than quick popularity or simpler methods. It is the timeless truth that keeps his supporters motivated and leaves many amazed, and maybe a little taken aback by the silent power of his beliefs. How do you feel about his logic? Tell us in the comments section below. Thank you for viewing. Till the next occasion.